Welcome everyone to another edition of WFCF TV. Dale Brill here with you from our offices in Tallahassee, and quite excited to be using technology to talk to one of our near and dear friends over in Jackson County. Art Kimbrough is going to be joining us today from a location just down the road. We're going to try to patch this together and see if we can give you a CNN style experience today. Art, let me jump right into things. I want to again ask you to give us a sense of what's going on in Jackson County, to give a context to some of the comments that you're going to share with our audience today. Give us a sense of what's happening just down the road.
Well, Jackson County is a rural county in the middle of Panhandle of Florida, one of the centers of the hub of the rural axis, if we want to call it that. We've got the best and the worst of the economy, like everybody else. It's been flat. We've seen the retail sector struggling, the housing and the cars and all the things that everybody else is hit with. We've got too. But I'd say that in Jackson County, our highs weren't as high and our lows weren't quite as low. For a couple of reasons. About 25% of the jobs in Jackson County are institutional government-related jobs, from prisons and healthcare, and a number of those that we're heavily dependent on because many years ago the state didn't want prisons in his backyard, and the rural areas said, bring it on and we'll park them here. So we've got some interesting equations to work with in this particular budget year, where a lot of the costs are looking to come out of government jobs. The interesting part of it is that the jobs that are in Jackson County that are government are not the result of bloated government growth. These are fundamental services that are being provided, that are going to be provided somewhere. So the dependence on that is an asset economically, but it's also a bit of a liability when you're concentrated in one area and the state is under stress. So we're working through those things, trying to find ways to grow our economy beyond that current dependence. But when you're in a rural area, you don't have nearly as many options to work with, especially when the state isn't growing and you're not able to depend on population growth and other kinds of things to do that. We're working on tourism, but there's a number of vibrant areas within the subtexture of this overall small community environment.
Well, Art, it's amazing when you listen to the complexities and the context that you've got in Jackson County. And while it can seem very unique to your area, I can share with you, and I think there are folks listening today that can relate very much to some of the challenges you're experiencing. And that's why I think that you're telling the story that we're going to ask you today is so important to us as a foundation and to our audience. You are among the first adopters of the Six Pillars program. You are among the first Six Pillars communities. What can you share with us about the importance of the framework and how that's played out as you all have taken on your strategic visioning process?
When we first learned about the Six Pillars, my chairman of the board of the chamber, myself, actually had a chance to meet with you, Dale, and we looked and learned what they were. We were beginning the process of thinking about a new strategic plan for the chamber to really drive it into the future and make it more relevant and connected to both the state issues as well as the local issues. And when we first learned about it and got to study it, we began to see the thread of the kind of conversations that really everything we were dealing with were in some way related to those categories. Some stronger, some weaker in terms of the impact on our community, but it gave us a chance to look afresh at our own community vision. 10 years earlier, we had done a community-wide visioning process called Imagine Jackson that had articulated by the citizenry at large the idea of our ideal community 20, 30 years from now. So we had expressed that, the community had expressed it, but it was getting stale. And the Six Pillars process gave us a fresh way of looking at those things and specifically tying it to the chamber and to the community on things that we could do to advance that process and do it synergistically with the themes and directions of the state. Because we found through the Florida Chamber, through the Florida Chamber Foundation, through our connections to the rest of the state, that if we are able to work with the inertia that's going forward, we can actually have a bigger leverage and impact. So that was the genesis of the idea for looking at this and locking into it and making it an integral part of our overall strategic plan.
Well, Art, certainly want to take advantage of your knowledge and expertise as one of the early adopters of the Six Pillars program and becoming a Six Pillars community. What can you share with our audience about lessons learned, the things that went well, but maybe things that you would do a little bit differently? Can you share some of those key insights with the folks today?
Well, part of the lessons learned in being an early adopter is that you're not as sure how to navigate your way through these things, and it's a lot more fits and starts and curves and twists and turns, and you go forward and backwards a little bit more because the process is being invented really by those of us who jumped in it that early. With the guidance of the foundation and the dialogue and the 10 steps to go through, that gave us a basis for doing them, but they're still fairly broad and not rigidly defined. So that was both, to us, was an opportunity and a challenge. It was an opportunity because it gave us a way of filtering what we knew and what we needed to know to get it defined. It was a challenge again because it was a bit of an unknown, and we really had a fairly small team that was working it. And there's an advantage in that because the small team that's leading it were very strong intellectually, very strong community involvement. They understood the chamber, they understood government, they understood the business community and the various sectors that intersect with it to make it work. But I think the challenge was, in our case, was more of the unknown on how to get there and what would this thing look like when it's done. There wasn't really any models other than the idea of it to really tie it into it. The epiphany was when we realized that we could break apart our basic strategic plan into 4 elements: mission, membership, management, and message. And if you think about what a chamber does, the mission really defines your overall purpose and what you're trying to do as your umbrella set of themes. The membership, well, we're a membership organization, so what are the benefits, what are the things we supply to that body, what's the value they receive for being part of it? The management is operational excellence and all of those things related to that. But message was really all about advocacy. What do we go to bat for? Why do we go to bat for it? And that's where the 6 pillars really tied in as a framework for articulating what our message was going to be, whether it's to the community and trying to convey a set of ideas and herd the cats in one direction and get something done, or whether it's to champion a cause at the state level or tie in with resources the state has to be able to execute those kind of things. So that was, for us, that was the epiphany that broke us free of the bounds of how to make this thing work and what it would look like. And then it was a lot easier because we could take the 6 pillars themes under our advocacy title of message and say, what do we need to advocate for in our community underneath that particular theme, and how did it tie in? Well, with Chipola College and Baptist College of Florida there, and the educational system, when it came to talent, that became a real clear set of actions we were either already involved in or could be involved in to increase the leverage there. And when you look at civic and government structure, one of the things we were able to do was say, how can we influence that to improve the efficiency and the processes in our local community? Whether it's permitting or whatever the issue is that's getting in the way of effective growth, then we had the ability to identify those areas and target them. And each of the other 4 areas, we were able to define specific things we could do as a small rural chamber. Staff of 2, a board of 25, 20 some odd ambassadors in the group, and another 15 or 20 volunteers. But that's really what drove it, is we've got limited resources, but now we have a consistent set of messages and ideas we can put in play at any given moment to make our community better and to be able to carry on the same conversation with our counterparts in another part of the state. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Here's what we're doing. How can together we find better ways to get where we want to get?
Well, Art, as I expected, the insights that you shared there are going to be important to the folks that are going through the 6 pillars process. And want to thank you for, again, your leadership and the involvement of your entire community of being out there in the forefront. In fact, if there are any of the folks that are listening to our broadcast, to this podcast, and you are interested in becoming a Six Pillars community, I want to invite you to contact us here at the Florida Chamber Foundation, and we'll help you along that process. In fact, we've done everything we can to make this as streamlined, as seamless, if you will, as you adopt the framework and work towards your own local visioning process that bubbles up into that statewide Project 2030 strategic planning process happening here at the Florida Chamber Foundation on behalf of the entire state of Florida. So again, thanks to Art Kimbrough, President of the Jackson County Chamber of Commerce, and thanks to you, our audience, for spending a little more time with the Florida Chamber Foundation on WFCF TV.
Pleasure to be here, and I challenge anybody out there to get on board and get it done.